Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home and Away, a podcast devoted to all things in and around the world of sporting Kansas City soccer. I am Drew Vanderploeg, joined once again, as always, by my good friend Cody Welton. This week on the podcast, Sporting Kansas City headed to Vancouver Friday evening, and if anyone was still holding out hope they may shake off the match in Colorado Springs and come out with some more competitive edge, most of those hopes were dashed pretty early as Emmanuel Sabbi ran pretty rampant up the makeshift left-sided defense of Sporting and helped Vancouver to a 3-0 lead before the half-hour mark. In the oft-quoted words of the imitable Denny Green, "They are who we thought they were!" Thankfully, the bloodletting was swift and clinical, so we could all settle into our usual level of malaise regarding this club rather quickly. Whether it was game state or changes in the second half, probably a little column A, probably a little column B, the performance did solidify somewhat, and while the bar is subterranean at this point, the team did improve on how it played in Tuesday in Colorado Springs, as well as from the first half to the second half on Friday night. That said, those moral victories are very hard to find, and one has to wonder if we're too close to the forest, or too close. We can't see the forest through the trees, right? Too close to the trees to see the forest, and highlighting them may be making that worse. Playing the only game on a slate on Friday night meant that most of the national media saw this one, and oh boy, did they have some things to say afterward. Rightfully so, this team is bad, but also it reminds us of simpler times when Sporting were simply ignored by such outlets.
Good or bad.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't talk about us. All this does beg an important question, though. Is Rafa Wicki setting this team up for success? Or at least for as much success as this roster can muster? Because the current moment, it seems like his principles are meant to be followed in spite of his players' ability to achieve them, not necessarily because it will enable them to do so. So is there a more pragmatic way to do things that don't risk losing the locker room, especially when it is full of unexperienced young players that need development? All these are things we're going to cover this week. Finally, we'll do a little bit of U.S. Women's National Team discussion. We'll chat about what we saw in MLS this week and do a quick preview of this weekend's upcoming match in Chicago. So, Cody, for some reason, I was the calm one on Friday night. Maybe it was because I got all of this out on Wednesday, but it's a pretty rare situation. I had somehow finally reckoned with the fact that this team is terrible and was going to get wrecked by Vancouver. And as a result, I was able to sort of focus on evaluating the game and evaluating the team as opposed to sort of living and dying by each moment as a fan of the team. And I actually saw a few things that, like Wicki post-game in the press conference, I thought could be built upon. Whereas in Colorado Springs, there was literally nothing. There was nothing to take away from that one. Like watching the film would almost be useless. So that said, Sporting were not good in this game. It did not take long for Vancouver to show how not good Sporting were, but also what a good team looks like.
Yeah, it was quite the contrast in teams and in talent and in intent and playing style, and I think that what we were treated to was a team in Vancouver who, especially, I mean, both with and without the ball, but I kind of honed in on what they did without the ball, and you can see why they're so successful, because Sporting players did not have time or space to do anything unless Vancouver chose to give it to them. And so really what that meant is from the outset, like Garcia had, multiple players around him, multiple Vancouver players pressuring him, forcing him to make quick passes that maybe were ill-advised, forcing him to at least trying to force him to play, backwards or to the side instead of finding progressive passes, and which is exactly what you would expect a team to do to in order to shut Kansas City down when everybody knows that Kansas City has, at this point, one good player. And so they keyed in on that player, and it was just apparent. I thought that just the surface level organization of Kansas City's defense, when they sort of sat back in the 4-4-2, and tried to frustrate Vancouver. I thought that their base level of organization was okay. That's something that I've noticed in the last couple of games, the Colorado Springs game notwithstanding. But that's just like sort of a minimum level of competency, right? Is like have tidy lines and be narrow and compact without the ball. But it's what happens, once an attacking team is pressuring you and trying to poke at the boundaries and see what they can get away with. And Sporting Kansas City just falls apart far too easily when that happens. And then that's not even. I mean, that's just talking about defensively off the ball stuff. With the ball, I think that your point about them sort of trying to play in a certain style regardless of the talent, that take really appeals to me, because I feel like I feel almost like a little like Peter Vermes PTSD, with what's going on here.
But with a different requirement, right? Like, it's not the same. He's not asking them to do the same things, but he is asking them to do shit that they just don't like. He's even saying it in the press conference after the game. I want them to be brave with the ball. But then he says in the right moment, or make the right decision, and
they are never brave with the ball in the attacking third, and that is like a vintage Peter Vermes bullshit thing. And I can't tell you how many times that I saw them dump the ball, down to Harris or Capita, and then instead of attacking the box during transition moments, they pulled the ball back and then passed it around and then lost it.
But in fairness, the reason that they're not attacking the box is because they're 1v6 when they're there. Like, there's no one else there.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that this speaks to the Wiki's inability to latch on to anything. And I think that that's what a group, especially of young and developing players, they need something to hang their hat on. And they don't do anything well. Like, that is not hyperbole. They don't do anything well. And my preference would be that they focus on defending well at all costs. That's personally what I would do. But they're not doing that. They're not attacking. They're not focusing on attacking sequences. They're not focusing on transition sequences. I don't know what they're focusing on, because whatever it is, they don't have, like I said, they have nothing to hang their hat on. They're not doing anything well, and so I'm just starting to get really concerned about the just about the vibes and the locker room, and how long these players can withstand just going out there and getting pounded every game.
Right. That's the main concern that I have, is that eventually the message just starts not resonating anymore. Regardless of what your belief is on whether or not the tactics or the way that Wiki is going about doing this are right, is sort of irrelevant when they keep getting smacked every week and the players just lose interest. That is what we saw against Colorado.
Yep.
Is they just quit playing like professionals, and that is a concern that it will happen more and more often. And I think that that your point is taken regarding how this is a problem that we discussed last year. Is how do they mean to score goals? How does this team mean to score goals? Now, I can see ball progression ideas in the middle of the field, but you're right. We're not seeing them come off in the final third. Part of the reason why is they never fucking possess the ball there. Okay? They rarely have any meaningful possession in that area of the field because they just can't hold on to it. They are not good enough to pass in and around and through real MLS defenses that have eight in front of them. They can't fucking do it. So while I understand your point, I'm not sure. I think that's where I get where the tactical thing. If the ideas are to get to a 5v4 possession match, like pass through the midfield quickly enough that you surpass enough of their lines that you are going downhill and you have numbers against theirs where you can pass. And those are generally the sequences upon which we've seen them score when they've had equal numbers or maybe a man up on them while the opponent was still trying to reset. That, not necessarily a counterattack in such parlance, but certainly splitting their lines quickly enough and going downhill fast enough that they can do it. And I think that can work. I just don't think that they do it enough in a game to where they create enough scoring chances to win. And that is a key problem. And some of it is talent related. I mean, it is not some of it. A lot of it is talent related. And so the question then becomes, how do you create more opportunities for players of this talent level to have decent opportunities to shoot on goal? And I don't think it's this way because too many teams have easily negated it. And not only that, turned it into transition events of their own that lead Sporting to be defending exactly the type of situations they're trying to influence on the opponent. And they are not equipped to defend them.
So do you think that they demonstrated a higher proficiency at transition attacking or counterattacking when they were running a 3 center back system?
I don't know that I can. I don't know. I know that it's something that you feel strongly about. I don't believe when they ran 3 center backs, when they ran a quote unquote 3 center back system, I think it was more just that they had 3 center backs on the field. It was less that they were trying to run a back 3. I just think that they happened to have 3 center backs on the field. So
because
they were still in a 4-4-2, with the exception of maybe the was it the RSL game that they ran they were actually in a back 5 defensively. They never really got in a back 5 that often this year, man.
Right.
So even when they had 3 center backs on the field because no fullbacks were healthy, they weren't really running a back 5 defensively, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I don't know what the answer or answers could be, but I do know that that I watched them multiple times in the Vancouver game progress the ball down to the attacking third and then stop and then play back. Whether or not you have numbers in the box, frankly, in my mind, is irrelevant because if you get the ball down there, you have to try and do something with it, especially given lack of talent. And attacking defenses in transition is one of the few ways that you can make up for that sort of lack of talent and then the lack of numbers in attack. And I can't remember having seen them pull the ball back and recycle it so much this year. And so it really sort of stuck out at me because I don't like that. And I don't think that I don't think this team has the luxury of doing that. And so if they're doing that, if they're being instructed to do that, I think that jives more with your point about, maybe trying to do maybe a more advanced tactics with a team that just can't do basic stuff, and so maybe it needs to be simplified because they, the thing about Vancouver is that one of the reasons that they are so good is they're very well coached. They have very specific jobs, each one of those players, and they do their jobs, and it's not like too much for them. And I think that was evident, when Sorensen came in last year, is he just sort of simplified. He was very clear in giving instructions. So you get the sense that every person on that field knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing at any given time. And the same really cannot be said for Sporting Kansas City at all. And I wanted to real quick before I forget, just to address the the quitting and the body language type stuff. And the second goal is a perfect example. After Chantrette turned the ball over, like, Reynolds was up the field, he was jogging. Bartlett was kind of, also kind of jogging, not sprinting back to help cover that pass. And Bartlow sat,
why is he 4 yards off the whole fucking time?
I was like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And that is like simple stuff, right? And you think about if
Bartlow's given up another goal that way. Like, I think it was against RSL when Luna scored. He did the same thing. He like sat off Luna when and that was, he actually had defenders behind him on that one.
These players, the opponents, are too good to give them that kind of time and space. And you think about if that happens, if it's, if it's one of, let's say it's Ocampo turning the ball over, that Blackman would not be sitting back like that. He would be pushing up immediately to pressure the ball. And so I think that is, that's a big it should be a big focus of this team, and fixing the defensive problems is really just get closer, be touch tight to other players, be in their business, because they're not.
You're 1v1 defending there. None of Vancouver's players have come back.
No one was close.
You literally have just that guy. Your job is there to not allow him to cut inside, show him to the post, and let your goalkeeper cover the post with pressure. Like, that is this is pretty basic fucking defending stuff that you're supposed to be doing in that circumstance, and he's not doing any of it. And it really frustrated me because we had sort of been high on Bartlow as a potential, semi-adult in the room, and this is something we need to discuss at some point tonight, is the lack of adults is a real problem, because this is where the disorganization and such, I think, comes from when how this team plays. But he's not. This is extremely poor, like really poor, and you can't. I mean, look, perhaps
Bartlow is not a young player,
right?
Like,
no, I know that.
He
But
is.
what I'm
he
saying
is the most veteran of all of these center backs.
But perhaps to your point, I mean, yeah, he's 26. Like, this is a guy who's been around professional soccer for a bit. To your point, maybe the only way to fix this is just to leave them set back all the fucking time. Like, I don't know. But what I will tell you is that when the dichotomy of organization defensively between the two teams was stark. Like, you could see that, and part of the reason Sporting had so much trouble is because Vancouver's defense was so organized. And yes, we know Tristan Blackman is way better at this than Ethan Bartlow is. I understand that. But still, just the way that they're organized, and the fact that when a Capito would get on a long diagonal into space and start dribbling downhill, and he's basically by himself versus four defenders, and Sporting consistently gave up scenarios where Vancouver was 1v1 or 3v2 or things like that, that shows the inability to maintain your defensive posture and organization effectively, and for how quickly things sort of fall apart in your organization. And I do think, and this is just like a couple things. One, when you talk about attacking the goal, even when it's 1v4, yes, because the reason you do that is because you have four guys running behind you ready to crash counterpress as soon as the ball's turned over, right? There is an intent, regardless of whether you're there by yourself. If you have a turnover, you've got four guys coming downhill right behind you to immediately pressure that team in an area where they do not want to invite pressure. Like, that is the
this team essentially does not counterpress.
They don't. It's absurd. It's absurd to me. But secondarily, like, you can see with the big thing when you talk about evaluating these teams without the ball, getting in a 4-4-2 mid-block shape is not that fucking crazy, okay? Sporting did it better in this game than they did against Colorado Springs. Cool, fine, whatever. The difference is, when they have the ball, their rest defensive posture is fucking terrible.
Yeah.
It is buns, dude. They do not maintain their spacing, their positioning. They're not like looking if I receive this pass and turn it over, where is my cover shadow for the next movement? Like, there's no thought being given towards rest defense. And that is why they get burned so bad on counterattacks when they do get downhill. That is why when they make a naive pass into central midfield, it is so quickly, like straight through their gut onto two center backs, because they're in a ball watching, like 8-year-old, like a U18 blob that is not in the least bit maintaining any type of positional responsibility. And that was the big thing that I saw between those. And that, I'm sorry, man, is coaching. That 100%. Is fucking coaching.
Yeah.
There are things I do understand, and I didn't mean to go this direction, but I understand where you're coming from on this. I didn't plan in going this direction negatively about how this team is playing, but I think it's unfair not to point it out. I do understand what Wiki's saying about there being things that you can point at and say, okay, more of this, please. I do understand that. I thought Chelo Tesantrit, for his first MLS start, obviously we know about the bad back pass. Okay, fine. But there were also a number of circumstances where he offered something that no one on this team has done all fucking year, which is winning second balls.
Yeah.
They could go long, create a second ball, because Chelo was actually winning them, and then allowing them to do something after that. Like, no one else has been doing that. Like, there were a number of circumstances where he did positive things. I thought his one-touch ball movement was way better than I expected it to be for a kid that had not played very much. So, like, there were things that were positive, so I don't want to make it all bad. But also, like, the chasm in performance between these two teams was still significant. And so I think while there are things that Coach Wiki can say, hey, you may not see it, I see these opportunities, I think he's right. Those things exist. But I also think he needs to be careful not convincing himself that they're actually onto something.
Right. So, his job is to take those things that might be disparate, they might be, completely, seemingly unrelated, things that are happening, for this player in this situation and this player in this situation. His entire job is to stitch those things together to make the team more than the sum of their parts, so that those aren't just sort of isolated incidences, right? It's not just, Chantret being able to win second balls. It's not just Kapita, getting out wide. And how do you mold and craft those things into something that raises the level of the whole team? And he hasn't shown,
and that is consistently repeatable,
right? He has not shown to this point that he's capable of doing that. Like I said, there's nothing that this team does well. And really they, especially if, a group of such young and inexperienced players, like, they need something that they do well. They need some confidence. They need something to hang their hat on, that they can rely on game in and game out. And the only thing that they have at all so far is the play of Manu Garcia. And that's not enough. Relying on one player who has his kind of weird set of skills, that's just not going to do it. You need something more if you're going to be competitive against even mid-table MLS teams.
Well, especially because it just makes it so easy for your opponent just to cancel him from the game.
Yep.
And then I mean, he's going to get one or two. He's going to get a couple because he's Manu, he's going to get a couple moments where he does something good. But as long as you can track those down, you've just eliminated a significant amount of danger if you're the opponent. And now you're forcing, other players to beat you that don't seem to have the ability or the understanding of how. And I think that is just that. That is a coaching problem to me. I'm sorry. I understand that it's Wiki's job to not motherfuck them over and over and over again, because that's not going to help either, right? Like, I understand that, and you need to find positives. You need to show them where they're doing well and what you're looking for them to repeat. I understand that, but also you need to instruct them a little bit better about how to not put themselves in bad positions. And I don't see that getting better.
Yeah.
Maybe Bartlett is getting a little bit better, but the quitting on plays, I'm I'm sorry, when you're getting crushed by a team like that, and it just keeps happening, possession after possession after possession, they just turn you over and go straight back downhill. Yeah, any fucking buddy would start going, man, fuck, I gotta go track back again. Especially after it's been happening over, and then your teammate just hands it to them, right?
Yeah.
Like I get it, like I understand where that comes from. But what I'm saying is that, I mean, though, that would be easier to deal with, and you'd be much more apt to go and try to crash back and help out if you just hadn't had the 17 other sequences prior to that,
Yep.
where you were out of shape and they took advantage of it, right? And
Yep.
and those are the situations where the structure has to be better, the instructions have to be better, and I do think that there's a potential in shape change and kind of how they go about possessing the ball that may make more sense, like, you know, maybe it is a back three or three center backs on the pitch. I don't care what you call it, but there might be better ways for them to create a base of competence when it comes to their defensive work that then, you know, and then focuses more on counterattacking. I don't even know what the fuck their pressure scheme is half the time. Like they tend to high press goal kicks. And then every once in a while, you'll see someone blast out of midfield to.
It's like when Manu decides to press, that's when they press. That's what it seems like.
Well, and I mean, to Manu's credit, he can't personally be the only one responsible for pressing.
Yeah. So my question to you is would the outcome of this game have really been any different if LBJ and Jake Davis were playing instead of their counterparts?
No, but that's because the team sucks, not because I don't think that's anything about them.
Right, but I mean, I think that kind of underlines, you know, some other points that, like, if these are two of your, you know, supposedly better and more veteran players,
Well,
and those two players can't raise the level of the team, like, there's other things going on here that are working against.
I mean, Jake is good comparative to other really not good players. I don't think he's actually good.
Yeah, it doesn't seem so, does it?
And in fairness, like he, like, you know, you had made a note of this previously, that you were kind of ready for him to just go because his body language has been so bad, and because the way that he's remonstrating towards his teammates on the field all the time, and him sort of seemingly sort of not happy about having to play right back, and just all the, I mean, again, we're editorializing a little bit here, but I mean, that's what it looks like, even if it's not really that. Jake's never been the best attitude guy in the team, let's be honest, right? Like, it's never been his forte, and it's definitely pretty bad right now. And against Colorado Springs, he was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
And I do believe that him not playing in this game was intentional.
Sure.
LBJ came on, and I thought at least played much better than he had in the last couple games. Again, game state, not, you know, the game state and such, but he did hit a couple of those long diagonals. You did start seeing him, like, at least participating in the game a little bit more. But I do think that we're realizing that there's still some significant pieces missing before he is going to be a component of something good, right? And let me ask you this, like, seriously. If you really think that Dejan Joveljic, Manu Garcia, Kapita Kapemba, and Lasse Berg-Jonsson are actually good, like, legitimate starting level MLS players, do 4 starting quality MLS players and 6.5, let's say, depending on how you feel on Pulse Camp, 6.5 backups, like down the bench backups that probably should be playing for your second team in a lot of cases, can those 4 players elevate a team like that to being good?
I don't know. I don't know if good, but, you know, competitive maybe.
Maybe not historically terrible. Yeah.
Right. And you know, and the position that they are playing those positions, especially those central midfield positions, like those are high impact, sort of, floor raising positions if they're played correctly by the correct people, and that just hasn't been apparent so far.
I'm just still so confused by the choices that Wiki's made here with this, because I thought that Sporting was playing some of its best ball progression soccer when Manu was receiving from deeper.
Yeah, so my suspicion is that all along, Lee and Wiki are um, are driving towards having sort of like a modern 4-3-3 type of setup, and that they're just plugging in players as soon as they get them. As LBJ and Kapitsa are here, they're plugged into to that sort of game model, even though the rest of the players around them don't necessarily work for that game model. And we talked about this last week when we talked about the over reliance on fullbacks, and part of the problem why the team can't attack for shit is because they're playing a system that should have very involved fullbacks when it comes to the final third, and neither one of these guys are even close to being able to put together compelling
Ian James
performances.
did a better job of
Right.
it.
That's like your point is very valid. There's like four players starting quality maybe out there if we start all of those players, and the rest of them they're playing with backups basically, and so it's no wonder
Backups to, like, in some
Yep.
cases, like,
Yeah.
rarely see the field except in
Yeah.
cup matches kind of guys.
Yeah, and so it's no surprise that they look as bad as they look, but at the same time, like whose fault is this? Like, we've put a lot of the blame on Wiki, and I think rightfully so, but Lee bears plenty of the responsibility too, and so the expectation has to be that there are some big strides made this summer, and we know for a fact we're getting a veteran center back, and that should help, one would hope. But that's the tip of the iceberg, man. There's a lot more work that has to be done, and it has to be done quickly.
Can you clarify a little bit? I know we're sort of bouncing around a little bit on the topics, but this is the conversation I wanted to have for the most part about kind of
Okay.
how the team is playing. Can you clarify a little bit what you mean by the modern 4-3-3? Because I think we think 4-3-3 and very much the Peter Vermees, Pep Guardiola 2017, 2018, 2019 sort of like positional play behemoth.
Right.
Modern 4-3-3 is a little bit different than that. Can you sort of clarify and explain what you mean by that, by what those responsibilities look like?
So, when I think about it, like, definitely a big part of that is a big part of the modernity of it is less reliant on like players that play one specific role within the system, right? Like, like Peter Vermees always had the single pivot holding midfielder, and I think that modern teams tend to have a more dynamic maybe pair of players who can play 6 or 8. Maybe one shades more towards 6, one shades more towards 8. But it's not so much as like you can compare it, I think, maybe a little bit to the way that like Tyler Adams plays versus like someone like Fernandinho, in the old Pep days. Fernandinho was like strictly like number 6 defensive midfielder type, and whereas Tyler Adams oftentimes finds himself paired in sort of nominally a double pivot, and will even press up into the attack on occasion. And so I think that the role of the holding midfielder is different for me. The role of the fullbacks, basically either able to play as a winger and hug the touchline, or push into midfield depending upon needs. I think that's where the game has gone, and so it's just maybe less of a specialized position by position expectation, and more of I don't know, like for lack of a better term, more of like a total football type of thing where players can play multiple roles within the system.
Yeah, because you
Do you
brought
do
up
you
you.
agree? Do you agree?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, I think Bournemouth is a bad example because they play in a double pivot. Like they
They
very much
do.
play
They
in a
do.
double
Yeah.
pivot.
But
So,
I mean like they do, but they don't, right?
well,
Like they
Alex Scott
do,
is a very attack-minded second midfielder, right? So,
right?
like, it is a different kind of philosophy for sure, and but they're also doing different things with their fullbacks
Yeah.
to sort of create a little bit of control centrally than what so like that was the point that I was trying to get at when we think. I just want to make sure when people hear modern 4-3-3, they're not thinking of the Vermes 4-3-3, which is very much overlapping fullbacks and channel runs from the
Right.
midfielders, right?
Right.
That is not what we're talking about here, right? We're
No.
actually talking about midfield overloads
Yep.
with intentional sort of vertical and sort of slightly horizontal positioning to create passing midfield overloads through the center channels, right? Which is
Yep.
different than what you would see from the pep positional play. You know, everybody's organized in triangles. Like
Right.
it's the triangle still exists because it's fucking football and there's there's geometry to this to be
Right.
able to create space and angles, but the philosophy of it is different. And I'm as much as I've been warmed by the last couple weeks of Jacob Bartlett's sort of growth in the role, like he's become much better at it. He is a long fucking ways from Sebastian Berhalter,
Yeah.
like a long ways from it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the point that I'm trying to make is like, when I said it in the intro, I was like, I feel like sometimes we're looking for these moral victories so hard, you can give the false sense of this is getting better. Yes, but it's infinitesimally. Maybe that's being too hard, but it's not. It's not getting better in a
Well,
way that is substantively going to change the dynamics or the potential of this team this year.
so Bartlett specifically, he's improving compared to Bartlett, right? Like
Right.
he's improving compared to his former self, and I mean, and in some respects, substantially. But that still doesn't mean that he is a starting quality center midfielder in MLS. I think he
Right.
probably isn't at this point, and so so when you're when you're talking about the ability to facilitate overloads, like that's kind of what I was getting at with sort of the fluidity. I was singling out fullbacks specifically, but that applies obviously to the central midfield. It definitely applies to the forwards. And I think that one of the things that we see is forwards not playing inverted quite a bit, and so that sort of lends itself to and that's definitely something Vermes did, but he also absolutely had those guys play wide, like super wide,
Hmm.
wider than maybe
They would do a
um,
lot of wide side overloads, actually. Like it was
yeah,
very
yeah,
common for them to get four guys in the attacking zone in a wide channel
yep.
and use that as a means to ball progress into the 18-yard box.
And those wide overloads are like, if you watch a lot of, especially like mid-table teams in the Premier League, like that's how those teams are trying to make stuff happen, is by those wide overloads, because they're safe, right? Like, it's, if you lose the ball in those positions, it's a lot safer. It's a lot easier to press, because you have you're not in the center of the field, right? You've cut off half of the field, and you have the sideline to help you out. And so I think you see a lot of teams really focusing on those kinds of overloads, trying to get the ball in behind the defense, or in through the half space, and there's an intent to those teams, watching those teams work. There's an intent when you watch Vancouver, facilitate overloads. When you see Berhalter, fluidly moving from one side of the field to the other side of the field to help provide those overloads. There's an intent and a fluidity to it, and a purpose to it, that is not apparent in anything really that's happening for Sporting Kansas City if Manu Garcia isn't involved. And Garcia is good enough that he can just do it,
kind of on his own, right?
Kind of on his own. That's what it seems like. It seems like he's just out there, putting in work, doing it on his own, and everybody else is like, "What the fuck are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to be? Who? What?
Well, but even when they get into that wide side overload, and there's a secondary reason those wide side overloads work, is typically the opponent will let you do it because they don't want to bring 4 defenders that far away from the goal when their ball is that close to it, right? So they will allow you to bring extra players over there more than they have defenders for, because the expectation is that at some point you got to come to them, and then they can mark effectively at that point. Yeah. Depending on how good you are at eliminating that line, those 2 defenders to begin with. But the main problem is, even if Sporting did have a 4-man overload wide of the 18-yard box, Manu is the only one who can consistently pass in that scenario. In that tight touch scenario, hit good passes. And so when they attempt to do that thing, it becomes a turnover so quickly that they never get into any type of directional momentum. And to your point earlier, they don't counterpress. Yeah. So there's no attempt to win the ball back and try to get back to it. And that is really my main concern more than anything, is that every possession in the opponent's defensive third, and there aren't that many, ends as soon as it starts.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. Either that passing sequence turns into a scored goal that got you in there in the first place, or you're going back the other direction. Like, those are the only options. And it's a problem for a team that is trying to build some sort of positive vibes about playing soccer, and they're never able to see any joy. They're never able to consistently put the opponent under pressure because of the way that they're playing. And I don't know how, what the point of that is. And Wiki has said in press conferences, he wants them to make the right he wants them to be brave or whatever in the right moment, right? He wants them to make good decisions. Well, no wonder that, if you can't understand why they're making rash decisions, it's because they never get any fucking chance to score. So when they finally see one, they're like hot potato, like, what the fuck? I don't know. Shit. Right? Like, I gotta take advantage of this because I'm not gonna see it again for half an hour.
Yeah.
And of course they act this way. So it's like, I did not expect 8 games in to be doing is Rafa Wiki the right guy to be doing this? And I got to be completely candid. I don't believe firing him does any good whatsoever.
You don't want to watch Dom Kinnear coach the rest of the season?
I don't even care. It doesn't make any difference. I don't think it would solve any of these problems, right?
No, it doesn't.
So it's less about, it's just more like, I think a little bit more pragmatism and a little bit more of you've got one of the youngest rosters in the league. Why aren't you trying to run the fucking pants off the opponent?
Yeah. Yeah. The lack of the implementation of some sort of comprehensive,
you have 2 of the fastest wingers in the league.
Right. Now you do.
Right, but still, yeah. Shouldn't you just be trying to just absolutely burn them on the counterattack?
Right. So there's 2 ways of taking advantage of that. You can either burn them on the counterattack, or you can use those speedy wingers to press press high, and neither one of those things are happening.
Right.
And
I
I
do think
that
Kapita did a lot better in this game with help defense. Like, he helped a lot for Kwaku in this one, and Kwaku did not have a good.
Has Kapita ever played on turf before? Because he looked like he had no idea. Like, his touch was
it was really bad.
like
it was really bad. And
I'm like,
it was
bro,
it was
come
not
on.
doing much for the Mark Kapfer narrative that Kapita has no first touch, because it looked really bad in this game. I will admit it did not look great. But he also was probably the most positive player on the field for Sporting at the same time. So whatever you think about how he dealt with turf and how the ball bounced on it, I don't know. I don't know if it was maybe he does have elephant feet. I don't know. What I saw on video does not look like an elephant footed guy, but regardless, like, you should be using his elite skills, which are getting on the break and attacking 1v1, and they're not trying to get him in those positions that I could tell.
No, and I think they did a better job earlier in the season of getting Harris in some of those positions, and so I assume that that's coming. I assume that a big part of the reason they weren't able to get him in those positions was because Vancouver didn't let them. And I think that's something we have to keep thinking about, is that they played not only like Vancouver is just a complete team in every respect. They're one of the best defenses. They're one of the best attacking teams. They are just the polar opposite of what Sporting Kansas City is. And so, a lot of the things that, we're complaining about, not working or not coming off, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we were playing a team that that didn't allow Sporting Kansas City to do much of anything until the game was well in hand. But I think if you squint just a little bit, you can see where having Harris on one side, Kapita on the other, and Decky up top, and Manu in the center of the pitch dealing to those players, you can see how that could be a recipe for something, right? And it's just a matter of getting to the point where we can show that.
The difference is being good enough in the middle of the field that you're pulling the opponent forward enough that they feel like they have to commit enough numbers to defending you in the center of the field that you can get behind them.
Right.
Because right now that's not the case. Whenever Sporting gets a guy deep, well, first of all, every fucking team in the league knows as soon as they break the first line, just to foul them.
Yeah.
Right, like, it happens constantly, man. As soon as Sporting actually breaks through the first line of pressure, if it looks like it's going to be bad, that guy knows to just grab the foul, because they know they can reset their defense and Sporting can't break it. Right. Yep. So, like, that's the first thing. Second thing, none of the guys that they have that are moving the ball to that position are dangerous enough to force the opponent to commit numbers to trying to eliminate them.
Right. And that's a big part of the reason why LBJ has been a little bit disappointing so far as well. Like, he was supposed to be that player, right? Like, he was supposed to be the player who would pair with Manu in the midfield and allow them to possess the ball, the two of them, and then progress off of that. But that hasn't really materialized to this point, and it's just like, it's still really early, and I'm not ready to write the dude off. But, like, come on, man, you gotta like up it.
This is where I will get behind your overall thought process tactically, which is running three center backs and running a 3-4-2-1 and running a double pivot of Manu and LBJ. It just makes sense, man. Yeah. You've got two guys who can be good on the ball, close to each other, playing off each other, and making it difficult for the people pressing them. It's a 3-4-3, if you want to invert Kapita and or if and run a 3-4-2-1, I don't care. I really don't care. You can call the base formation whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't care. Arrange the guys on the field in a way that you've got rest defensive posture and that you've got you're putting your offensive players in good spots for them to attack the opponent. I'd call it a fucking 2-2-6 for all I care. I don't care. But I do think that having Manu deeper next to LBJ is a much better use of his talents. And I think we saw that at the beginning of the season. I really liked it in preseason when him and Bart would be there. Like there was some cool, interesting stuff happening with that. And he is an elite ball progressor. And god damn it, they need someone who can consistently move the ball forward. They don't have it right now. And as soon as they move Manu upfield, all of the ball progression stopped.
Yep.
And you had a guy who was in the first 3 games of the season amongst the G+ leaders in central mids, now is fallen off a fucking cliff. Now, part of it is because the opponent knows to kick the shit out of him every time he receives the ball, sure. But the other part is because he's starting too high.
Yep.
And if LBJ is next to Manu and Manu does his like try to dribble around 2 guys 18, 20 yards from goal, at least LBJ goes, oh shit, I better back up here in case in case a turnover's coming.
Not out there chasing butterflies like a little golden retriever puppy.
Exactly. And I think a 3-man back line with a Manu LBJ double pivot is worth trying. What the fuck do we have to lose at this point?
Right. I mean, I feel like Wiki is coaching for the team. He's coaching like he's coaching the team he's going to have next year, and I think that is
he ain't going to be the coach next year if he keeps doing this shit.
I am 100% in agreement, and I think that a little pragmatism will go a long way. I think it'll make fans feel better. I think that it'll make the players feel better and give them a little bit of confidence. But
it's also going to make David Lee feel better that he's got a coach who can deal with these kinds of problems.
Right. Right. You don't. We had a dogmatic ideologue. We don't need that right now. That's not what this team needs. This team needs somebody who is pragmatic and who has very simple, clear instructions that they give to players, and that enables player development. That's what this team needs.
Seems kind of simple, doesn't it? I don't want to oversimplify this, but I mean, I think that yeah,
it's not simple, but it's also not rocket science, right? It's like, and I think that I mean, it's hard to tell when you look at like the actual data and the XG differential, but I think that signing LBJ when he came on, and I just sensed like a clear shift in the way that Wiki was trying to play, and I think the team has gotten a lot worse because of that. Maybe I'm full of shit. I don't know, but that's kind of the impression that I have.
It could be a little bit of correlation and causation. I don't know, but what I can say is that I don't feel that. Some of it is also everyone's got film on this team and knows what we're trying to do.
Sure.
So they're taking advantage. But the other part is there's this look. They're very bad defensively. They're very bad, and their center backs are bad. Like, and I mean that in a way that is not meant to shit on like Borges and James, who are very inexperienced young players, but the other guys they have that aren't inexperienced. Well, some of them are still inexperienced, but not as young. They're still bad. And
well, it's got to be a little concerning, Drew.
They have one right back on the roster, and they are.
But the new signings are Reynolds and Reed and Borges and Meyer and Bartlow. Those are all guys that Dave Leeds signed. Those are all guys.
Right. Well, they're all trialists outside of Reynolds and Borges.
Hey, that digs the hole deeper. That's not a good excuse.
No, it's a terrible excuse. It shows that he didn't get the fucking work done that he needed to get done. We're going to talk about the article I wrote in Backhill in just a second, because I do think.
Oh, you wrote an article? I had no idea.
Yeah, exactly. Woo! Look at me. No, what we are going to talk about it because there are some errors and omissions I wanted to cover. But I said this. I was like, look, he should have been more proactive. I do think that there are reasons why he wasn't as successful as he wanted to be. I think one of them has already left the club, but I think that there are that there was a misunderstanding of how urgently some of these things needed to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Or he was operating under a long-term plan that is no longer long-term in the eyes of his new boss, right?
Sure.
And I think that probably had something to do with it, right? Let's discuss that a little bit, because I do think it is a dynamic that needs to be addressed regarding where this team is going to go in the summer. When David Lee took this job, I don't think, the reporting we know based on what was announced or what was sort of leaked regarding Peter Maluk's majority ownership stake in the team was that the Illigs were going to continue to run the team. I think that was because no one was supposed to know that Maluk owned it. That is my read on the situation, is that I don't think anyone was supposed to know that Maluk was the owner, just that he was going to be the majority owner. But as far as anyone else knew, as far as the Illigs would stay on the board of governors, they would continue to operate the team. Maluk wanted to be the majority owner, wanted to help push the team forward from a financial perspective, but the man's got his own business to run, right? He wasn't necessarily wanting to go full into running a sports franchise. That is the read I get on the situation, based on the fact that it was leaked, right? Like, it was leaked. Maluk and the Illigs, neither of them benefit from that, right?
Yeah, it makes the Illigs look bad. It makes more work for Maluk.
Yeah, so like neither of them wanted that to happen. And for when it leaked, for it to say that the Illigs were supposed to retain control, even though they weren't the majority owner, tells you everything you need to know about what David Lee thought he was getting himself into, which was much more of a long-term plan for revitalizing this team.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not hard to come to the conclusion now that Maluk is sort of been outed as the majority owner and is like replying to fans on Twitter.
I don't reply to anybody now. I can't remember. I can't imagine being a billionaire and being like, oh, I'm going to pop off and reply to this person.
You should follow Mark Cuban. The man can't stop talking on Twitter.
I would rather not. Thank you.
But that's what I'm saying is, like, he cares. And he cares about the fact that his name is tied to this fucking mess. It's obvious. And so I think it's not hard to assume that he's also going to be engaged in how they go about fixing it.
Yeah.
So whatever the long-term plan was may or may not still be valid. So Lee may have been operating on a timeline under one person's control or one person's directive, and that may have changed. It's possible. I'm not saying it has. I'm saying it's possible that has changed. And so it'll be something to watch, I think, for sure. In that vein, the news dropped on the Discord today. This is your weekly reminder. And by the way, if you're a new listener of the podcast, welcome. Thank you. We appreciate you joining. Sorry, it's an hour in and I'm just now saying that. The Discord is where all of our listeners, or not all, some of our listeners, the sickest of them, they come and discuss the team further. The Discord link's in the show notes. On the Discord, Daniel Sperry sort of highlighted the fact that Sporting is in the process of hiring a vice president of data and analytics, which we all would agree would be a positive. It appears that search was done in partnership with Bloom Sports, noted employer of one Bobby Warshaw. Bloom is obviously very engaged in these types of environments, and Bobby has talked about them when he's been on SoccerWise. So I think we can call all of that good, right? Like, that means progress on the front office side of things, and you would expect that person. I mean, the requisition was post, it was up till like the 13th of April, and it has since been removed, which generally means they found a candidate and made an offer and are expecting that person to start. So hopefully there's some news coming in that regard. Sporting is the kind of club that I don't expect them to really say anything about it. I just think it'll happen and we won't know. And someone's going to have to like do the research and find out who it was, go scrolling LinkedIn for who's got new jobs at Sporting Kansas City to figure it out, which
Sounds
is how
like a job for Mike,
which was literally how we found out about these performance analysts that the team has now. Because they were very quietly added to the technical staff, and it wasn't the main reason someone found out about it is because it was posted on their LinkedIn. Hey, I joined Sporting Kansas City. I'm like, wait, who is this? Oh, okay. Good old LinkedIn, where DC United CSOs go to talk about the game.
No, they go to post their
AI,
their LLM.
their LLM driven, their LLM outputs about their thoughts of the game. So that's all positives, and I want to make sure that we highlight those because I did, as noted earlier, I did write a article for the Backheeled last week where I just sort of talked through the timeline of how Sporting Kansas City has gotten to where they are right now, which is in a pretty sad state. Let's be honest. I do think that, as I said at the end of the article, I do think that we are. I think we've reached the bottom of the parabola, right? Like I really do. I think we're at the vertex, and maybe just past the vertex, going upward.
Drew, you know who also reached the bottom of the parabola?
Who?
Sisyphus, every single fucking day.
Jesus Christ. Fucking rock kept rolling all the way back down there, didn't it? Anyway, I do think that they're putting the right structure in place to start moving the thing back upward. But the article was obviously about kind of the way down and how it happened. And most of it is probably not new for regular listeners of this podcast. They're all items that we have discussed on this podcast a lot over the last several years. But I thought it was, worthwhile to kind of put the whole timeline together so that everyone can kind of see what has led to this point, especially because I felt like, you'd hear bits and pieces from different national writers and such that were just not quite getting exactly the what has occurred, and there's pieces of it that probably have some truth to it, but not necessarily things that were actually driving the issues. And so I thought it was important to highlight that, as well as highlight the fact that I do think that the change that they're making right now is going to lead in a positive direction. It's just going to be on a longer timeline than any of us really wanted. And so I the one thing that I wanted to make sure that I highlighted in there, and I didn't really call on it in the article for a couple reasons, but one of them was mostly because I didn't really want to use it as a means, in an article where you're writing about something. I'm not trying to get views or intrigue on the basis of someone's passing, but I do think it's noteworthy to at least give Neil Patterson his flowers for the time that he was, helping run this club and sort of being the driving force behind it. Vermees would often talk about Neil as someone who could see through the bullshit, and but was also extremely passionate and extremely driven towards making the club good, and had a lot to do with the history that I talked about in the article that led them to success. And I think it's important to highlight that.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. Thank you for writing that article. I thought it was really good. If anybody listening has not read it, you should, because it's a very objective and succinct description of sort of how the club got to the point that it is at this right now, and I think that it should be required, reading for any Sporting Kansas City fan, obviously. So please go read it if you haven't already, and good job to you, Drew. I thought it was
Thanks.
great.
Thank you. I think, and it's free to read on Backhill. It's not behind a paywall at all. So you can just go to Backhill's website and it's up there and it's free to read. So I appreciate that. And a really big thanks to Joe Lowry for being supportive of doing all that, making it free and allowing everybody to read it. So I'd really appreciate that. So as I highlighted there, I think that Maluk's involvement may have some impact on how this plan goes in the future. Right? It's difficult to consider a scenario where it wouldn't have some impact, right? How much impact that has, and whether certain things get put to the side so other things can be accelerated, I don't know. But it's hard to think that he wouldn't have some influence on what happens next. Like significant influence on it.
It'll be interesting to see what effect that has on the summer window. It's a big window, just globally, given the World Cup and everything. And there are a lot of high profile coaching moves. I'm sure there will be a lot of high profile player moves, just throughout the game, in the global sense. And so, just having sort of the financial resources to really sort of take part in that is intriguing, to be sure.
For sure. It's definitely a new era, and I think it's interesting to see how that era progresses over the next 6 to 12 months. Moving on, the U.S. women's national team played 3 games against Japan. Claire Hutton featured in 2 of them. And I thought it was sort of interesting what Emma did with these games, where she kind of did the first game was kind of what you would expect to be her first choice lineup if she had to win a game tomorrow, right? The next one was, let's get all of these hot new youngins that have really played very well. Can they get it done against a difficult team in Japan? And then the final was a little bit of a mix, right? There was you saw Emma saying, okay, here's a couple players from that young group that I think that could be really good. Let's combine them with, perhaps more of my first choice starters and see what happens. And first of all, I thought Claire Hutton was by far the best U.S. women's national team player in that second game, where Japan sort of had their way with them, even without the ball. Like, that's one of those teams, and I can really appreciate this. If you watch Japan's team play, they can have 35% possession and control the game.
Yeah.
And that's next level shit, in my opinion, right? And they very much did that against the U.S., but I do think Hutton had a very positive game in that one, and such that she got to start with Lindsay Heaps and Rose Lavelle in Game 3, and I thought was a very significant part of that game as well. And I don't give a shit if she's playing in San Francisco now, or the Bay Area, as it were. I'm always going to be a huge fan of her game, and I'm very happy to see her continue to grow and continue to get better at a rate that seems sort of unsustainable, yet it continues to happen.
I did not watch. I only watched the first game, and so I did not see much of Hutton at all, unfortunately. But I'm a fan just like you, and I hope that she plays so well that she makes the Longs regret ever letting her get out of Kansas City, and I suspect that that's already the case. So
I don't know. Given how the Haslams kind of shoehorned their way into NWSL over this week by, basically buying out the Columbus City Council for a park that was supposed to be for disabled people and such.
Yeah. Billionaires have no shame. That's why they're billionaires. It's pretty tough to be a billionaire without that.
And they're all they really care is about their really exclusive country club of other billionaires, or in this scenario, sports franchise owners.
Yep.
Here, it'll cost you $205 million to join our country club, and then it's us and 17 others, and The Longs are in the country club. That's all I can say. That's all I have to say about that.
Yes, they are.
Moving on to potpourri. Just like your favorite Jeopardy category, we talk about things in and around the sporting Kansas City MLS soccer sphere. Could be anything. What did we like in MLS this weekend? What did you like in MLS this weekend, Cody? We had a full Saturday with no sporting games, so you got to watch whatever you wanted.
Yeah, and I watched some games. It was good. I had a good time. I think that the narrative this season that's continuing all the time is just how many really great domestic young players there are. More so, at least more that I care about than we've ever seen. And we did see the Baby Bulls lose to Montreal, which okay, whatever. I thought the Colorado game, the Colorado Inter Miami game was really entertaining. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that Colorado for me had become sort of must-watch television, and it seems that everybody else has jumped on my bandwagon, Drew,
Mm-hmm.
and so
they've caught on for sure.
They caught on, and so I really enjoyed that game, and I just like Colorado and Vancouver to me, and RSL also, like those three teams have like a very like similar vibe to me, and it's just a very sort of front-footed, intense way of approaching the games, both with and without the ball, that I can really get behind, and it makes them really fun to watch, and even and sometimes especially when they lose, and in terms of the Colorado Inter Miami game, it doesn't get any better than we watch Colorado scrap, and then Messi does something that only Messi could do, and that's that, and that is that's why you watch the game. That's why you tune in to watch Messi play, and he did not disappoint. What about you? What did you like?
Well, RSL you sort of took from me because you said so many things that you liked over the week. You didn't just say one. You kind of went through a lot of them.
Honestly, it's like every weekend I could say the same things. I love watching Colorado. I love watching RSL. Yeah. RSL is appointment viewing, dude. They are really fun.
Absolutely took San Diego's game plan and just used it against them. It was so wonderful to watch this happen. And I mean, Luna's first goal, the pressure, Duran Ferry does not do well here. And it was actually, Duran Ferry, don't feel so bad, because Gigi Donnarumma did the exact same fucking thing against Arsenal the next day. So it's not only you, my guy. Elite goalkeepers getting paid, £20 million a year are doing this too.
I did really, really enjoy that game too, by the way.
City Arsenal, of course you did, because of the result. Which,
of course.
Yeah. And Mikel Arteta is still doing Mikel Arteta things. It was just wonderful. The choices he made, just anyway, never changed, Mikel. But RSL, they used San Diego's game plan against them, and Pablo Mastroeni actually said this after the game. He's like, that might be the best performing game I've ever coached.
Yeah.
Where a team executed the game plan exactly the way he's their execution was probably the best I've ever seen of a team I've coached.
So that's because I think it's almost like a page out of Wilfred Nancy's book where you just enable players, right? You give players the confidence and the license to play soccer, and I just feel like that's kind of what's going on in the three teams that I've mentioned, and it always gives me hope that maybe there's maybe something can happen with Sporting, because like Vancouver was not great before Sorensen got there. They weren't. They were a playoff team, but they were nothing to write home about, and now they're this juggernaut. And
for sure, but I don't think either of us think Rafa Wiki is Jesper Sorensen. But that said, I never thought that much of Pablo Mastroeni as a coach prior to this season either.
That's
Like
true,
he's
but
fine, but I wasn't like he's like one of those guys that's always going to end up on sort of a middling MLS team as the head coach, right? Like that
yeah,
was kind of the feeling that I got.
yeah,
And now he's coaching like one of the most fun teams in the league. And I'm like, huh? Okay. Maybe it is about like getting the right structure, getting the right players. I mean, having homegrowns like Diego Luna and Xavier Gozo is pretty fucking nice though. It's
makes a
pretty
big
nice.
difference.
It's pretty nice.
You know, like to that point though. I mean, you look at San Jose, who
Right.
is another team that I really enjoy. And you know, Bruce has never been like Mr. Super Development guy, but he has taken and given Securus the keys to that team, and
He's the best 10 in the league right now, man.
dude, he is so good. When he was at Children's Mercy a couple of weeks ago,
He ran the fucking game, dude.
I was amazed. I was just sat and watched him. I was like, dude, that guy is so fucking good. Like I think I mentioned this last week. He reminded me of like Diego Valeri out there, just
Right.
like pulling strings and like all over the place and everywhere, all the time, just doing shit.
His
And
movement is so smart for a 20-year-old man. Like he drops
really
into
amazing.
pockets.
Yep.
He moves around. He's really good, sort of turning the ball
Yep.
with under his possession in the right direction and sort of like allowing himself angles. Like it's just like
Yep.
It sounds really nuanced, and it is, but also some of it is just his feel. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, and that is, I
But-
think, the
but he
Diego
has been-
Valeri kind of part of it, right? It's like his
yeah.
feel is so good.
He's been you know, sort of enabled to do that by Bruce, which is also like a really sort of underrated
John Sherman's
storyline
like,
and
or
amazing.
not John Sherman. John Sherman's the Royals. Who's the guy that owns the fucking A's and San Jose?
I
Is that
don't
his
know.
name? John. Keep going. Anyway, the owner of the Quakes is not going to give him any money.
Right.
Like, there's no money to be had to
Yeah.
go buy players. I can't believe they pulled off Timo Werner. There's no more money. I promise you. So he has to do this, and so he's like making Daniel Mooney and Bo LaRue and Jack
Yeah.
Scan and all these other guys, like he's enabling them, which should tell you that, hey, look, at some level, yes, it's Ethan Bartlow and Wyatt Meyer and Ian James and all this, but some teams are figuring out how to make that shit work.
Well, maybe not quite that shit, but like the next sub level up, maybe that.
Like I said, the
So-
bar is subterranean. We're like below the mantle at this point for the science teacher in the room, but
Right.
we need to get up towards the crust, and in order for us to be at least potentially good, or potentially not even good, potentially like competent. We're a little below that right now.
So there are three games that I really didn't pay much attention to. One is the New York City game because I, on principle, refuse to watch soccer hosted in a baseball stadium. And so
it is an affront to my sensibilities.
gross.
I tried to watch the New York City Miami game, and it was so unwatchable, dude. I just couldn't.
Even though they're not. Their field is not turf any longer. I still would rather not watch Atlanta United be Atlanta United, so I still haven't seen Nashville. And then I did not watch the Sounders beat St. Louis, but I can fully support the scoreline.
Well, what I can tell you is, and this was my other thing that I really enjoyed, was St. Louis leaving Christian Roldan dead open free on the back post on 2 consecutive corner kicks.
Actually, I did see that. I think I was watching 360 because I saw both of those scores, and I was like, dude, you fucking idiots.
It was the exact same play.
I was like,
and like it was there's a good screen happening there. Like this is a well-designed corner kick where I don't remember who was screening in front of Roldan, but after it happens the first time, you have to be ready for that fucking play the second time.
It wasn't even a screen. It was more like a old school like wedge play. Like
it was a block.
Actually
it was
pushing people.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean that's terrible defending by St. Louis. It's so bad it looked like Sporting Kansas City. That's bad it
exactly
was.
what I said. I was like, leaving Roldan free on the back post on 2 consecutive corner kicks seems like Sporting Kansas City. Like that's a Sporting Kansas City move right there.
I'm not above insulting St. Louis by comparing them to Sporting Kansas City.
Oh, they hate
especially this season. So when they do really bad shit, yeah, babe.
As we're recording this, it's a Wednesday evening as we normally do. There are a bunch of midweek MLS games happening right now, and the Baby Bulls are now up 4-3 over DC United.
Every time I look up, there's another goal scored because it's like it's out of my sight line, so I have to like turn my neck, and when I look over, I'm like, holy shit, another goal.
Ruvalcaba just got the leading goal now. But yeah, there's been a lot. Ronald Duncor's got a goal. Julian Hall's got another one. So yeah, it's been a wild event.
See,
Red Bulls have 1.17 xG and have 4 goals.
They are showing that you can be a not good team and still be super entertaining. So Sporting, take notes.
Well, I mean,
it doesn't have to be.
You need Adri Mehmedi and
maybe
and Julian Hall, and you need players of that. Ronald Duncor. I guess Robbie Volleder had a Volleder in this one. That's one of the goals that DC scored in this one. So we had the Robbie Volleder special. I didn't even get to talk about the John Pulskamp special. I told you all about it. We had the complete John Pulskamp, which look like absolute ass for basically the whole first half, and then make 2 absurd saves that you're just like, wait, what? This guy is the same player?
Was that would have been a penalty if it wasn't a goal, right? Like he totally took that.
There were like 3 circumstances where it would, because I think there's a handball in there,
right? And a questionable tackle. At the goal mouth. It was that was going to be a goal regardless. It was a comedy of errors, man.
It was going to be a Tomas Muller goal instead of who is it, Sabbi that scored on that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we did have the I call it the Pulse Camp, where he just is absolutely terrible on a couple goals and then makes some absurd athletic save that no one else in the league does. It is the full Pulse Camp experience.
That's why he's still got a job, man. Because you look at him, you're like, "Ugh, that was bad."
If you could just get him to stop thinking, I think he'd be a decent goalkeeper. It's when he starts thinking that things just go wrong.
I'm the same, Pulskamp. I'm the same.
He ball watches as bad as all of his teammates do. Anyway. But yeah, so there's a lot of fun MLS happening right now. And I think to your point, and I think this has been brought up by several individuals, Matt Doyle as well in his newsletter today. Yeah. His newsletter today sort of talks about it. Tuzul Rahman has brought this up quite a bit. We have probably the best, most fun collection of young players in the league that we've probably ever had. Doyle goes in his newsletter and sort of tries to compare it to 2018. I don't think the depth of quality of young players is anywhere close to in 2018.
Well, and definitely not like there were good players, and there were players who were good eventually, who turned into like great players on that 2018 squad.
Alphonso Davies and Tyler Adams were in the league in 2018.
But here's the thing, like the players that are around today, they are super fun to watch in a way that those players were not.
Davies wasn't. I mean, Tyler Adams,
when he played, but Davies didn't play all the time, right? Like he was still like sort of handled with kid gloves to some degree, right? But like he wasn't given like Nico Sekiris has the absolute keys to San Jose, and to see a 20-year-old. This is your team. Do your thing. Same thing with Diego Luna. That's awesome, man.
On a team with Timo Werner, Nico Sekiris is the guy driving the bus.
He's the guy.
Which is cool to see for sure.
And it's cool to see now, and it'll be really cool to see in 4 years.
Bad news for Sporting Kansas City's wooden spoon hopes. Atlanta United is leading.
Yep. Well, I got nothing. If we're gonna be bad, we might as well win the spoon. That's how I feel about it. I know that many people don't feel that way, but I don't give a shit. I mean, if there's no moral victory from being second to last. So for me anyway.
True. I mean, we've never won it. We're the only original team that's never won it. So
yep, that's true.
I would like that to say this.
I doubt we'll win it this year, just because.
Really?
Hey man, like You could never count on DC United to be
True.
competent
That's true.
ever.
Um,
And honestly, you could probably say the same thing about Orlando. I
and
mean,
they
they've
definitely
they've
don't.
done.
Orlando's up 3-1 right now, so like they're. I don't think Orlando's bad enough to keep being as bad as they've been. DC United,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
so.
Montreal definitely.
Yeah.
So
Montreal's got a bunch of home games coming though. Although the only team they beat are the Baby Bulls. That's the
and they played them there 2 times, so they're done,
they're
man.
no
That
more.
might be
They
it.
can't schedule them anymore this year. I do think that there is a component of this that it's related to the split. It's effectively a split season with the World
Yep.
Cup break.
Yep.
And I think a lot of teams are going pretty hard because they know that they have 6 weeks off.
Yeah,
After
and
that.
a lot of teams aren't going hard at all because they don't have any good players, and they're
waiting for the summer window to do something, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
I don't know if that was the plan, but I'm certain that was the rationalization.
Yep. I think that's what I was going to say. I
meant.
think if it wasn't the plan originally, it became the plan pretty quickly.
Right. Oh
Right.
yeah. Well, we've got 20 games after the break, so we can
We're
just
good.
bring in guys.
We're good.
You only got 2 international roster slots, my guy. You better figure something out because you're gonna have to trade for some of those players.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do a quick preview of the trip to Soldier Field. Justin Reynolds, may or may not be heading back to Chicago. He was held out of practice on Tuesday for whatever thing he had. He was subbed off at like the 50th minute, and Wiki's made some comment in the postgame presser about him having something going on. So both he and Borges did not practice on Tuesday. We'll have to see how that progresses. It's hard not to take those things and go, man, what the fuck now? But honestly, it's just because this team's floor is so low that it it gets worse somehow when there are injuries, and you just want them to look semi-competent, and the only chance of them being semi-competent is having their full accompaniment of players. Yep. And they are not going to have them, it looks like. And that's true of every soccer team for sure. It just feels more significant right now because they're so light on available talent. Also, Chicago got Hugo Kuipers back last weekend,
and he had a great game,
and he did Hugo Kuipers shit. And Berhalter's done a really good job, sort of solidifying that defense, which has often been sort of a tenet of his teams. We know it with the U.S. men's national team. We know it with Columbus. They were always very defensively sound. Obviously, South Africa's most popular player is a part of that, Mbekazeli and Mbawazi, but they have also just really solidified their back line, and Jay Davila, their 6, has also been a key component of that. And I think that it's going to be tough. I mean, look, they're a better team. They're a better team than us. I don't think Chicago's quite as good as their record right now, but they're still way fucking better than us.
Yeah, they're still not only a playoff team, they're probably a home playoff team, and so I temper your expectations is what I would say.
Right. And Soldier Field is not the easiest surface to play on. It tends to be a little bit long. Although I think this time of year they don't have to cut it for football, so maybe they can make it a little bit more playable, but who knows?
I think I'm really keyed into watching, LBJ and how he reintegrates with the team and how he's being used specifically. Because I think that is, his ability to integrate into the team and to sort of be able to execute whatever, Wiki's game plan actually is, I think is key to this team, becoming at least what their coach expects them to be. And so, seeing him, I definitely want to see Harris and Capita on the wings. And other than that, I mean, like we said, it's just about, stringing together some positive results. I'm not even speaking about like wins or losses or draws. I'm talking about like on the field, like stringing together some like positive actions that can serve as building blocks for the next game and the next game and the next game. And that's really where we are. I mean, this thing has been sort of stripped down to nuts and bolts, and it needs to be built back sort of carefully and with thought behind it. And so hopefully we can start to see that
and
happening.
typically that's like the foundation and the main structure, right? That's what you're trying to build.
Yes.
And I'd like
defensively
to see,
and
yeah,
without the ball.
Yeah,
It's the most important thing.
So that as soon as you walk away, a slight breeze doesn't blow the whole fucking house down, right?
Amen.
And
Amen.
that is kind of the issue that we've had, is that that stability is not there, and we got to figure out how to build that stability. And I do think that is why you kind of continue to go back to the three center backs solution, and I am fine with that. I think it's more of just being less concerned with trying to be some sort of elite ball progression machine, and being more concerned with trying to pull the opponent forward so you can beat them on the counterattack and be effective that way, so that your attackers are not trying to attack 1v4 all the time. I think that there are ways for you to then create a little bit more dangerous options that your opponent then has to take seriously.
Yep.
Right now, the opponent does not have to take you seriously
at all.
They don't. They are not the least bit concerned about what you're doing.
Yep.
And that's a problem. You're not going to win soccer games that way. You have to find a way, if you want, or not even win. Be competitive. You're not going to be competitive in soccer games if your opponent does not care what you're doing.
Yep. Absolutely.
So hopefully that we'll start to see them influence the game a little bit more. And you can influence it in more ways than just the way they've been trying to do it. And hopefully we will see that. And whether we do or we don't, we'll be back to talking about it next week. And until then, I'm Drew. He's Cody. We will talk to y'all then.
Go Sporting.